Hello friends, and welcome back to another tutorial. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you how to make these mini rotating cuffs. These are some of my favorite things to make. They just honestly make such great fidgets, and they're super easy to make. I do want to quickly apologize. I'm sorry that there was no video last week. My apartment was fixing our AC units and I did not have AC for a week, and it was way too hot to be inside of my apartment. Like, it was getting like 90 degrees and I couldn't sit down to film. I was way too hot. Now, if you have seen my UFO Kandi cuff tutorial, this is going to feel really similar to that. Now, I'm very excited because I am going to use this duck base head bead to make it look like I have a duck swimming around in a pond. If you guys are interested in base head beads, you remember that I do have a discount code. You can use code FEEDRAGON to get 10% off your next order at Base Head Beads. Now, to get started, I am going to start with a 1mm stretch cord. You can use regular clear elastic if you'd like, or if that's all you have. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do just want you to remember that if you have the choice, I would recommend for cuffs to use the stretch cord, because over time this will eventually dry rot and it's not as stretchy as this. Now, to get started, we are going to be making a 1-layered X base cuff. I am gonna kind of go through this pretty quickly, seeing as I do have a tutorial, I'll put it right here in the upper corner, on how you can make a single layer X base cuff. So if you need a way more in-depth tutorial, go ahead and check that out. I'm gonna go ahead and get started with my base of my X base cuff. Now, the pattern for this is going to start as a normal Kandi single. I'm gonna add 2 of any color and then what I call a stopper bead. So it's going to be these colors here. So you see I have 2 orange, a glittery orange, 2 orange, a glittery orange. For me, what feels the most comfortable around my wrist is when I have 10 of these stopper beads, and that is when I'm going to stop. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep adding on until I get to a comfortable length using this pattern. If you are following along with me, this is where you are going to pause the video and then play when you are ready again. I am now coming up towards the end of my pattern. So as you can see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of these dark blue beads. And then I'm going to tie this off just like I would a normal Kandi single. So crisscrossing those strings and pulling tight. Now, for the sake of the shape, we are not going to tie this so tight where there's no stretch, but we also don't want to tie it too loose or it's not going to hold its shape. But I would say a medium tug is always the best. I went ahead and gave this about 3 or 4 ties, and I'm going to cut the tiny tail off. And we're going to start building our first point for our X. We want to make sure that the beginning of our string is in between these beads and one of our stopper beads here. So if yours is not, if it's in between these 2, you're gonna weave it over to one of the sides. When I take my string, I wanna make sure that I'm going in the direction of the 2 beads and not backwards over top of the single stopper bead here. So we're gonna go this way. Once you have your direction mapped out, we're gonna start building the first layer of our X. So I'm going to take 3 beads of any color and I'm going to do a pattern like this. I am then going to take my string and I'm going to weave it in to this next stopper bead here. So for me, it'll be that dark blue. I'm only weaving my string through that dark blue and I am pulling. And I'm gonna give this a little bit of a tug. Again, we're not gonna be like, yeah, but we do wanna give this a bit of a tug because we want it to keep that little point shape. And I am going to continue this pattern all the way around. This is the part where I am going to stop filming. I'm going to continue this pattern all the way around until I get to the very last step. And then from there, I will show you how to step up our row and we will do our last point for our X. If you are following along with me, this is where you are going to pause and then play when you are ready again. And welcome back. We are now at our final step. So I'm gonna go ahead and add on my 3 beads. And I am going to weave it into that blue bead just like we did before, but I'm also going to weave it up through this blue bead here and this bead here. So we want our string to be sticking out through the tip of this bead here. So I'm going to weave it through And I'm gonna go up this bead and through the point, and I'm gonna pull. So now we are going to finish the point of our X. So I'm gonna go ahead and add on my 3 beads. Now, if you want your cuff to match on both sides, if you used a different color for the middle, you are going to go back to the first color of our bumpers, if that makes sense. I'm gonna take my string and I'm going to weave it in to this point here. And I'm going to continue this pattern all the way around. So I'm gonna add my 3 beads and then weave it through the bead sticking up next to it. And I'm gonna continue this going all the way around the cuff. I am going to stop filming. I will start filming once I get to the very last step, and I will show us how to close off our X-base cuff. If you are following along with me, this is the part where you are going to pause and then play when you are ready again. Okay, welcome back. We are on the last step. So I am going to add on my 3 beads. And I'm going to do the same thing again, just like how we stepped up before. So I'm going to weave my string into the point next to us, up this blue bead and up through this point. So we want our string to be sticking up right here. So I'm going to weave it through. I'm going to weave up through the neighboring bead and up through that blue point. And I'm going to pull. Now we are going to go ahead and close off our X-base cuff. To do that, we are going to take 2 beads of any color. If you want them to match, you will use these beads here. And we are going to weave it in to the points that we just added. So it will almost be like how we did down here when we added our 3 beads, but we're just gonna be adding 2 beads. So for me, it's gonna be right through that dark blue, and I'm going to pull. And as you can see, it'll start to close off your cuff. And I'm going to continue this pattern all the way around, adding on my 2 beads and weaving it through the points that we just added. I am going to stop filming. I'm gonna go ahead and go all the way around until I get to the last step. When I get here, I will start filming again. If you are following along with me, this is where you are going to pause and then play when you are ready again. And welcome back. I am now on the final step. So just like before, I'm gonna go ahead and add on my 2 beads here. And I'm going to weave it in to my point right here, just like before, and I'm going to pull. And now we have a basic X-base cuff. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and actually tie this off. What this is going to do is it's going to anchor the tension that we've made for this. Because when we go to make these little points, I'm gonna be pulling pretty tight because I really wanna make sure that it holds its shape. If I pull on those points really, really tight, what's gonna happen is it's also gonna make this part pretty tight as well, and I don't want that. You don't have to do this if you don't really care, but I'm pretty picky about the tension of the string. The way that I'm gonna tie this off is I'm gonna take my string and I'm going to weave it in right here. And I'm gonna kind of take my string and kind of mosey it over in between these guys here. And this is gonna create a really big loop. I'm gonna take my tiny tail and I'm going to pull it through that loop we just made. And I will do this a handful of times. Again, this is totally not necessary, but something that I like to do just to preserve the tension of my cuff. Okay, so now we are going to go ahead and add on our spikes. And once again, if you have done my UFO candy cuff tutorial, this is going to feel very, very similar. We are going to need 5 beads of any color for this. So I'm gonna go ahead and add on my 5 beads. And this is the pattern I'm choosing. Because I'm doing the duck thing, I kind of want it to look like grass, so that's why I'm choosing green. It does not matter what your pattern is. However, if you want the point to stand out and be a different color, that would be your middle bead. Now, direction is important here. We want to make sure that when we take our string, we're not going over our bead like this. We want to go in the direction that it's sticking out of. I'm going to take my string with my beads attached, and I'm going to jump over to our stopper bead here. So for me, it'll be that dark blue. And I'm going to pull. Now remember, I'm going to be pulling this pretty tight so that way it holds its shape. I want to make sure that I am helping shape this a little bit. Now we are going to continue this pattern all the way around. I'm going to show you how to do this a handful of times. I have my 5 beads, and I'm going to weave it in to my next stopper bead. Remember, for these, I am pulling this string pretty tight just to make sure that it holds its shape. Try to do this one more time. I'm going to add on my 5 beads, and I'm going to weave it into my stopper bead. And I'm going to pull, and I'm going to pull this pretty tight. Remember, helping shape it along the way. So you can see I'm pulling this tight. Alrighty, my friends. Now we are going to continue this pattern all the way around until we get to the very last step. And that is when I will start filming again. So if you are following along with me, this is where you are going to pause and then play when you are ready again. Okay, so as you can see, I switched up my pattern a bit because then I realized I still had some of these green sparkly beads. I thought they were cute. All right, we are on the last step. It is going to be just like before, so we're just gonna add on our 5 beads. And we are going to weave it in to the stopper bead here. So that very first one that we actually started on. And we pull. So we are going to do the exact same pattern, but at the bottom. In order to do that, we are going to take our string and we need to weave it down diagonally all the way to this bead down here. So we're going to weave it through beads number 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to take my string, I'm going to weave it through the bead number 1, the bead number 2, 3, and 4. And I'm going to pull the string through. Now to start, we're gonna make sure that we are following the direction of the string. So it is sticking out of this way. So I'm going to start going this way. If we take our string and we go like this and it's going over top of the bead, this is not the direction we should be going in. And I am going to continue with the exact same pattern that I was on top. So I'm gonna go ahead and add on my 5 beads, and I'm going to take my string and I'm going to weave it in to this stopper bead here. So for me, it is that dark blue, and I'm going to pull. I'm going to show you how to do this a few more times. I have my 5 beads added, and I'm going to weave it over into the stopper bead next to it, and I'm going to pull. Remember, I am pulling these tight to keep these spikes in shape. And I'm going to show you how to do this one more time. So I'm going to add on my 5 beads to the side of the string, and then I'm going to weave it in to the stopper bead here. I am going to continue this pattern all the way around until I get to the very last step. And then I will start filming again. If you are following along with me, this is where you are going to pause and then play when you are ready again. Okay, I am on my last step, so I'm going to go ahead and add on my 5 beads just like before, and I am going to weave it in to the stopper bead here, and I'm going to pull. Now I'm going to tie off our cuff here, so we are super close to being done. I'm going to take my string and I'm going to weave it underneath these 2 blue beads here, and this will create a loop. I'm going to take my string and I'm going to pull it through that loop, and I am just going to make sure that my knot lands in between these 2 beads here, and I'm going to pull. And I'm going to pull this tight to make sure that my little spikes hold their shapes. And I'm going to tie this off about 3 or 4 times. Now for these types of cuffs, when I trade them out and stuff like that, when I'm done, I normally add a little dab of crazy glue on the knot just to make sure. I've never had an issue with one of these popping before. I went ahead and gave this a few ties, and I'm going to trim my long tail, and now we have the basis for our rotating cuff. And you can also just leave it like this too. This is a really cute spiky cuff. Now, all we are going to do from this point is we are going to make essentially a jumbo candy single. All I'm going to do is I am just going to take some beads here, add it to my string. I'm gonna try my best to do maybe a little pattern, maybe add some white in there for some contrast. And as I'm going, I am taking my candy single and I am placing it up against my cuff to make sure that it fits. I'm just gonna keep building this round until it fits around our cuff, remembering to measure as we go. Okay, so I am coming up towards the end here. I'm gonna go ahead and add on my finishing piece. And my candy single now wraps around the entire cuff. So now with that, I'm just going to tie this off again, just like a normal single. I'm gonna give this about 3 or 4 ties. I'm gonna give this also a pretty good tug as well. We don't wanna tug it too much because we still want it to be stretchy so it actually goes over the cuff, but we don't want it to be too loose where it falls off the cuff. And I am going to cut off these 2 tails. And I'm gonna take my candy single, place it in between our spikes here. Oh, look at how freaking cute this is. Look at him go. He's swimming. Oh, I love these little duck beads from Basehead Beads. They are so cute. They are so perfect for these types of projects. These are so fun to trade around. I made a bunch of these for EDC Las Vegas and people were so obsessed with them. Alrighty, my friends, thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped anyone looking to learn how to make a mini rotating cuff. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please leave them in the description below. I'm also going to be throwing up my email here for you guys to show me some of the things you've been making. And it's been really, really fun. I very much appreciate you guys showing me. The one at the end of this video is really special because this person has a wrist full of cuffs and things that they've created specifically from my tutorials, and it warms my heart. Thank you so much, my friends. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye-bye.